Hey guys, welcome back. So I told you guys I was going to do part two. I got real rambly and long-winded in part one explaining my, ideas of the differences between domestic and international. And I wanted to take some time to answer all of your questions from Instagram about domestic and international adoption. Y'all have a lot of questions. So that's what this video is going to be, is I'm just going to go through and answer your questions that I didn't answer in part one. So if you haven't seen part one, you might want to watch that. And yeah, let's just jump in so we don't waste any more of each other's precious, valuable time. Okay, so question, how to pick a China adoption agency. So confusing. There's a group on Facebook that is amazing. It's called Rate Your China Adoption Agency. I think that's what it's called. You can search for that. Just search for China Adoption Agency rating or whatever on Facebook and you'll find the group. People have been candid, real, raw, honest about their experiences with their agency. But yeah, so you can go on there and search and find people's experience. There are a few agencies that have been working for years and years in China. They are very well known there, have good reputations there, and I feel, at least for us, are trustworthy. Holy goodness, my sister just texted me and said she's pretty sure she's in early labor. Okay, now I'm going to try to do this video. Look at me, I'm going to start crying. I'm going to try to do this video. I'm super jacked up. I cannot wait to meet my niece. Okay, how do you pick which organization to use? For us, this involves a deep research process. I know that some people just want to hit the ground running, but for us, it's massively important that we research the agency that we are using. We read all the reviews, good and bad, to make an educated decision. We never want to intentionally or unintentionally be a party to something not good or whatever. So there have been agencies, the truth is, they're run by humans, and humans can make mistakes unintentionally, but also intentionally. So you just really, really need to vet out your agency, research them to death, and talk to people who've used them. Ask about their experiences, and don't be afraid to talk to someone at the agency and ask lots of questions. And if you get a weird vibe or whatever, listen to your gut on those things, because especially if they're making you promises like, oh, we can be so fast, we can whatever, don't fall for that crap. Remember that there's a child on the other end of this that is a human being that deserves the dignity of an ethical adoption, and as they grow, you're going to have to answer questions for them, and you want to know that you can stand behind your answers. Okay, lots of questions about cost and home study. As I mentioned in the previous video, I'm going to do a separate video all about affording adoption, as well as detailed explanation of home study, what it is, what to expect, and I'm going to share with you breakdowns from our previous home studies. Is one easier than the other for unmarried couples? I don't know for sure. I would assume that domestic is easier because it's at the mercy of, sort of a birth mother choosing you, and you can do that if you're single. There are some countries that will allow you to adopt if you're single. I have a friend who's single that has adopted 3 or 4 times from India. Some countries require you to be married. Guys, listen, there's not a whole lot of countries that are available for international adoption these days. So it's not like I'm asking you to comb through 30 hours of research. You can kind of get on pretty quickly, look and see which countries are currently open for international adoption. And they have usually their requirements are listed. Got to be married for this long. It's usually you've got to be married for at least 2 years. You've got to be older than 24, 26, or 30, or somewhere around this. So there's lots of different requirements depending on the country. Sometimes there's income requirements. But yeah, that's pretty easy to find based on the country. I could not give you a general answer for that. Lots of questions about which one is harder. And again, I said in the previous video, they are both hard. You really are choosing your hard, what you want to sign up for. It's kind of there's both unknowns and things like that. So I talked about that in the previous video, but I definitely would not say one is easier than the other. It really just depends on what you're hoping for, what you're looking for, and really what you feel pulled towards and called towards. I mean, obviously for me, my faith is a huge driver for that, and I do feel very clearly when I feel as though God is asking us to do one thing or the other. It's very apparent to me. Did you consider an open adoption for your domestic? If not, why? We have always been 100% open for open adoptions. I think open adoptions are absolutely a beautiful thing. I think there's a lot of unnecessary fear surrounding them. And I think that for a child, as much knowledge as they can have about their past, where they come from, their family, all of that is typically a good thing that you can give them later on down the road and things like that. So every situation is different, but I would say definitely don't be afraid of an open adoption. This is probably dumb, but in the international adoptions, are children always in orphanages? Sometimes they're in foster homes. I know China did utilize foster homes for a while. Then recently they did something where they pulled all the foster kids back into their orphanages, which was heartbreaking. I think it's far more common for international adoptions for the child to be in an orphanage than in a foster home. Sometimes they're in a foster home, but most of the time, in my experience, they are in an orphanage. Visitation rights for biological parents, again, that's something that you predetermine with the birth mom ahead of time, what that's gonna look like. If it's just gonna be pictures and letters, if it's gonna be yearly visits, if it's gonna be pictures and letters until the child is older and then visits, that's something you decide on ahead of time. Do you know any countries other than UK and USA that allow same-sex families to adopt? I don't know off the top of my head. I know obviously you can do that domestically if you want to do a domestic infant adoption. I don't know about any international. Somebody can help me out in the comments if you do. I'm pretty sure that the majority of the international adoptions don't allow same-sex couples. I could be wrong. Something could have changed in the last few years, but that was the last I knew of it. Again, I kind of talked about expense differences and timeline differences in my last video. Which would you do again? We would do either one that we felt like was where God was leading our family. We would absolutely be open. We are open to whatever we feel God has for our family. So I'll just say that for right now. Timeline. So from the point of home study to bringing your baby home, how long did each take? Again, very different. We started Rosie's home study and then she was home 9 months later. Noah's adoption process, we started that in the spring and he was home in the late summer, fall of the next year. So it was over a year, probably like 15, 16 months. Jonah's adoption, we started that in December, really got our homestead, everything ready in February, matched, but that match fell through in April. We took the summer off and then we're matched with him in October. I wasn't able to pick him up and bring him home until Thanksgiving. So a little under a year total for that whole process, including the failed adoption. Lots of questions about the paperwork. Some people have even said, you know, what's the hassle of paperwork? Guys, listen, it's not a hassle. When you feel that like burning in your heart to adopt a child and bring them into your family and you really feel like this is what you're supposed to do, it does not feel like a hassle. It does not feel like a chore. It feels like for me, it feels like I get to do this. Is it stressful a little bit at times? Sure. Having background checks done and things like that is always like a little bit stressful, but I just get so excited, like checking off the boxes and doing the things I need to do because I feel like I'm doing them for my child. I'm doing them for my baby. I'm doing them for this little person that's going to be in our family and I'm going to love them so much. And every moment of this is worth it. Every penny of this is worth it. Like I never view it as a chore. I view it as like I get to do these things to bring you home. And I don't go into it with it's a hassle, it's paperwork, in my opinion, like you've got to shift your thinking about it completely, and you will just like run on fire for these things, like with your hair on fire. You just be like running, like, let's do this, you know? Chances of getting an infant in either situation. Obviously, if you're doing a domestic infant adoption, that's very likely. Jonah was 7 weeks, almost 8 weeks old. His circumstances were a little different, and you guys, we don't share like all that stuff. But he was 7, almost 8 weeks old when I was able to go and get him. But for the most part, domestic infant adoptions are usually from either birth, if you're there, or a day or two after, that sort of thing. And then obviously international, as I mentioned. Sorry, there's like a hair in my eye. As I mentioned with international, you're most likely looking at adopting a child that is over 2 years old. How far in advance should you start the process in either? I think that a home study can take months, depending on if you're doing a Hague home study or a domestic infant home study or whatever. It can take months to complete. And then obviously you're going to be working on figuring out the financial aspect of it and all of that. So I don't think it's ever necessarily too early. I think you can go ahead and start your home study and get that done. You don't want to do it too far in advance because they do expire. So it is only good for a window of time. So you don't want to like do it 2 years before you're ready. But I mean, if you feel like in the next 6 months, then I would say like go ahead and just start. And then that way, again, if you're not somebody who likes to be rushed, like I am somebody who's just like, yes, let's do this. Let's run. And I'm good with that. But if you're not, or maybe your lifestyle just doesn't allow you to be, you are very busy, you have a very demanding job or something like that, that just, you can't just like make time for the fingerprinting and the different things, then give yourself lots of time and start a little earlier. What is anything you would change about each adoption? So that's the last question I'm going to answer. And I can tell you just like 100%, there is not a darn thing I would change. There were painful things, there were hurtful things, there were difficult things, there were dark moments, dark times, things that I don't even like to think about, but I still don't know that I would change them because I'm the kind of person who's like, you just can't get to where you are. Like I can't be here if I didn't go through there. So I never like to think about like, oh, I wish I could change that, because then I wouldn't be here exactly where I am with the knowledge that I have, that I might not have if things had gone differently, the appreciation, the gratitude. Like I think that we so often want to avoid pain. We want to avoid these cracks and brokenness. These are the things that like give us this character and build us up into who we are. And I love, there was a Bob Goff quote recently, and you guys know I love Bob Goff, but he said something about like, God doesn't break things so he can fix them. He fixes broken things so he can use them. And I'm just like, yes, I love Bob Goff. I love how simple his wisdom is, and it's so good. Like all of these broken things, these hard things, these difficult things that happen in the journey, make you into this like more formidable, stronger, capable person that God can use in these amazing ways. So I wouldn't change a thing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully I got to the majority of the questions. Like I said, most of them were about cost and time frame and which one was harder. So I feel like I've really talked about that ad nauseum. So that's it for this video. Like I said, I will be doing a video about affording adoption as well as details about home study and all of that. So any other videos on the topic that you want to see, let me know and I will try to get to those. But yeah, I hope you guys are having a great week and I will see you again very soon. Bye guys.